Hello YouTubers, Alaska Prepper here. I've done a video on canning beans in the past, but it was kind of a long video, and I know that those really long videos kind of throw people off. So since I have to can up some pinto beans, I thought I'd bring you along for the ride and make this video much shorter. And then what I'll do is I'll leave the card or the link for the video that I did where I was very precise and I showed you all the parts of the canner and everything on a card up here on the right hand side, right up there somewhere. So if you guys want to take a look at that video, if you've never pressure canned before, you can go take a look at that video. But I just want to show you how easy it is to pressure can some pinto beans, and really any beans. This method works with any beans. I've been doing it for years. How inexpensive, how easy it is, and really a small investment on a pressure can or in some jars, if you use it, will pay itself off pretty quickly. First of all, let me go ahead and show you the canner I'm using in case some of you have not seen me do pressure canning videos before. And this is a T-Fall 22 quart canner. I'll show you the lid here once we cover it up because it's kind of a different canner than what people are used to seeing. This one has what I call a mechanical weight, meaning that the weight is attached to the lid and you can leave it on all the time instead of it coming off and coming on, right? So now what are one of the benefits of you canning your own beans, whether it be pinto beans or black beans or navy beans or lima beans or whatever kind of beans you guys like? The biggest benefit that I see to it are two things. Number one, you know exactly what's going into it, right? You purchase the beans and you're going to package it in these quarts before you process it. The only ingredients that I put in my beans are the beans themselves, clean water, which I get from my reverse osmosis system, and a teaspoon of sea salt. And that's it, ladies and gentlemen. And these beans come out just as good, if not better, than the beans that you buy at the store in a can. Not only that, a lot less expensive. So if you figure a 25-pound bag of beans at Costco, right, which is what I have to compare it to, right, because that's where I buy my beans, is I would say between $15 and $20. But let's go ahead and say $20. We're paying about 80 cents a pound per pound of beans, right? 80 cents a pound compared to the anywhere between 69 cents to $1 and change that you would pay for a can of bean at the store that has the equivalence of about a half a cup of beans. 1 pound of beans is going to have roughly, let's see, about 2 full cups. About 2 full cups of beans is just shy of 1 pound. So you're getting about twice as many beans by doing it yourself than what you're getting when you pay for it at the store. So the first thing that I'm going to do here is I'm going to go ahead and get my beans, wash them, and make sure that they're nice and clean before I put them in my jars. This canner here takes 7 quarts. And I've got 7 quarts prepared right there. You can see 1 there and then 6 right here. Now, one thing that you want to remember, ladies and gentlemen, and it's up to you whether you do this or not, because everyone does things the way they want to do it, obviously. When you're pressure canning, you don't have to sanitize your jars, because pressure canning is a way of sanitizing. So when I pressure can something, I clean my jars really well, which I already cleaned these jars out really well and rinsed them out. And then I'm going to put my product in there, and then I'm going to put a lid on it and get them to pressure can. That's how easy it is to do this. So if you want to save some money and know what food is going in your family's mouth, in their bellies, this is a great way of saving money and putting up some beans that are ready to go. If there's ever an emergency, you have them ready to go and you can literally eat them out of the jar. I'm going to go ahead and wash off my beans. We'll be back to put the beans in the jars, and then I'll show you what I do to the jars before I put the lids on them. Alright, so I've cleaned my beans really good, and one of the things that I like about the beans that I buy from Costco's is that they come pretty clean already. So I rinsed them off really well, making sure that there's nothing coming out of them that I needed to continue to rinse, and they're very nice and clean to start with, so it didn't take me that long to rinse them off and get them ready to put in the jars. Now, some people have asked in the past, do I pre-soak my beans, and why not if I don't? I've never pre-soaked my beans. I know that some people do, and I've never had a problem with any of my batches, not once. And I've been, you know, pressure canning my own pinto beans and black beans for years. So if it's your preference to pre-soak the beans, then go ahead. But I can tell you from experience, personally, that without pre-soaking them, when they are done and I get ready to use them, they are still firm to the touch, but they are fully cooked. Meaning that they're not going to fall apart or turn mushy on you when you try to use them to make other dishes, you know, like chili or like rice and beans and things like that. They still keep their structure. So this is the way that I like to do it. It's always worked for me. And if you like to pre-soak them and you have good results like that, go ahead. If you've never done this before, then you may want to give each method a try and see which one works better for you. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go ahead and fill all of these up. What I'm going to do is for each quart jar, I'm going to put in 1 1/2 cups of beans. I think I misspoke before. I said I use 1 teaspoon of sea salt. I use a 1/2 teaspoon of sea salt. So I just put the salt right in there. And literally, putting the beans in the jars was probably the most difficult part of this process. If you don't want to wash off your beans, just have one of your kids get in the sink and have a little bit of fun stirring the beans around and inside of a colander. And now that we've got our salt in here, all we have to do now is fill it up with water. Fill them all up with water till about the 1/2 inch mark or so. So about till the beginning of the neck right here. Gentlemen, now that all of our jars are filled with water, all I'm going to do now is I'm just going to wipe off the rims. And they're very clean already. I mean, the only thing that would have disturbed these rims would have been maybe a little splash of water, which is really not a big deal. Now, as a precautionary method, I am going to go ahead and get a little bit of vinegar soaked into this paper towel, and I'm going to do another wipe off as well. I hope that, being that this video is a little shorter, that more people will watch it and it will inspire more people to do their own canning, because it's really not difficult to do. Alright, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and grab my lids. Alrighty, so I have one more jar to put the ring on. So I wanted to go ahead and let you know real quick. When you put this ring on, you do not want to put it on really tight. I know that I had the other ones on fast speed when I was doing it, but what I do is I put it on a little bit tight and then I loosen it a little bit. Like that. You see, you should be able to grab 2 fingers and open it. Alright, so finger tight is all you need to do. Another thing with this canner here, the instructions on the T-foil pressure canner says to put at least 3/4 of a gallon of water in there. I always put a gallon. It works out very well for me. I also put a splash of vinegar in there to make sure that any mineral deposits that are in the water don't make my jars cloudy. You don't have to do that, but it does make it easier for you when you go to clean your jars so that your jars don't come out cloudy. Now, being that the water inside of these jars is cool, you want to make sure that if you start to preheat the water in your canner, that it doesn't get too hot, that it doesn't get boiling. You can get it up to a little bit of warmth, you know, where the water is a little bit warm, but you don't want it to get too hot to where when you introduce a cooler temperature to a hot temperature, that it will crack your jar. So I'm going to go ahead and put these jars in there and then show you what it looks like. Now that's what it looks like inside. As you can see, this fits 7 jars very nicely. This canner will fit 7 jars or 14 pints. And it does come with an additional separator. Right? You know the grates that go on the bottom? It comes with an additional one in case you do want to put 2 rows of pints. So that's it, ladies and gentlemen. This is how easy this is. So what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to put this lid on. And I always make a ruckus out of putting on the lid because I always try to put it on wrong. Because I always get the wrong side. So let's see if I do that again this time. And I did. I have it on the wrong side. Let's see. Oh, there we go. So I had it on the right side anyways. So as you can see, I've got the lid on there. Very easy to put on. This is a very user-friendly pressure canner. So what we're going to do now is, since I am pressure canning quartz, I am going to go ahead and make sure that this pressure cans at pressure for at least 90 minutes. I always add 5 minutes to it, but that's just preference for myself. But the book says 90 minutes if you're going to pressure can the quartz. And what we do with this canner is, we're going to go ahead, and this is what I call the mechanical weight. As you can see, it's got 3 settings. The number 1 is for 5 pounds. The number 2 is for 10 pounds of pressure. The number 3 is for 15 pounds of pressure. The elevation where I'm at requires 10 pounds of pressure, but if you guys already know me, I always end up putting it in number 3 just as a safety precaution. However, before you can start the timer for the pressure canning process, you have to make sure that you put it on this spot right here. You see that right there? Well, right there, you see this little icon? This is the steam icon. That means that when it starts boiling in here and steaming, the steam will come out this vent very rapidly and you'll be able to see it come out. Once we have this here done, what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and turn our pressure cooker to high, or our stove to high. And we're going to give this time to build up pressure and see the steam coming out. When we see the steam coming out of here, we're going to start our timer for 10 minutes. And then after that, we'll go to our second step. All right, so I'll be back once that steam is coming out and we'll start our timer. This is what I meant about the steam coming out. This has been coming out like this for 10 minutes. My timer just went off. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take my mechanical weight and put it on 3. And now I'm going to wait for my pressure gauge to get above 10 pounds of pressure. Once that pressure gauge gets above 10 pounds of pressure, we're going to put on our timer for 10 minutes. And then once the timer goes off, we're going to make sure that it's still above 10 pounds of pressure. And then we'll start our timer for the processing time of 90 minutes. All right, so I'll come back once the processing time is done, and I'll show you what the beans look like once they've been taken out of the canner. My timer's gone off. It's been 95 minutes. As you can see, my pressure is still above 10. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to turn off the burner. And what you want to do is you want to let the pressure escape by itself. You do not want to let this pressure out prematurely. You're just going to let this sit until all of the pressure is out on its own. And then we'll be able to take the jars out of the pressure canner. Why is it that you want to let the pressure leave on its own and not assist it and letting it escape rapidly? Because what can happen is if there's any air bubbles inside of your jar, when you let the pressure come out too fast, something that's called burping may occur and ruin your seal. If for some reason there's little air bubbles trapped in there, since those air bubbles are under pressure, if you release the pressure too quickly, the air bubbles are going to want to expand really quick and they may burp out of the jar, causing that seal to break. So if you allow the pressure to come down on its own, it's going to mitigate that from happening, and you're going to have more success in your seals actually sealing to the jar and not being broken. So we'll be back when these jars are ready to be taken out, and I'll show you what they look like. Well, as you can see, ladies and gentlemen, the pressure is down to 0. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to make sure that there's absolutely no pressure in there by taking our mechanical weight and turning it to the steam. There you go. There's nothing coming out. So we know that it's safe to open this up now. Let's see so you guys can see what it looks like in there. Now when you open this, you want to make sure that you tilt it away towards you. That way that the steam, if there's any in there, can go that way. See? That way the steam won't come your way. And I don't know if you guys can hear that, but it's still steaming in there. See that? It's still definitely working. So what we'll do is we're going to let this calm down a little bit. And we'll come back when it's calmed down a little bit. Because if you look in there, you can see that it's just still cooking. And we really don't want to disturb it because we do not want to break that seal on the lid. Right? So we'll be back in a few minutes and we will take these out of the pressure cooker and you'll be able to see what they look like on the counter. So we're almost ready to get those jars out of the pressure canner. Someone asked me a question on the comments and I forgot to get back to him on a reply. So I hope he sees this video. And he was asking, what are the ingredient spices in adobo? Because he couldn't get any of this in the stores that were near him. So I told him I'd get back to him. So I hope you see this video. And I replied that I remember that the spices are very simple spices, which they are. And they are salt, granulated garlic, oregano, black pepper, and turmeric. And it also has as an anti-caking agent tricalcium phosphate. Right, so those are the only ingredients in this. It doesn't tell you what the ratio of the ingredients are for the spices, but very simple spices. And any of you that have tried this, I think you've all liked it. I haven't heard anyone try this that said that it wasn't a good product. Right? If you don't have this near you, I do know that they sell this on Amazon. What the price is on Amazon, I'm not sure. My experience is that for items such as this, the price on Amazon is usually a lot higher than what it is at a store, if you can get it at the store. All right, so let's go ahead and get these jars out of the canner. Now, one thing you want to have, ladies and gentlemen, this is for those of you that may not be familiar with jarring, is this little apparatus here. I don't know what it's called. I just know that it's what's used to pick the jars up off from the pressure cooker. One thing you want to remember when you pick your jar up is to make sure that you don't tilt it or anything like that. That you pick it up straight and then you come down and put it down straight. That way there is not a chance that some of the juices or liquids inside of the jar get in between your gasket of your lid and your jar and break that seal. Now, those of you that are experienced in this, tell me what I forgot to add to my pressure canner before I put my jars in. That's right. I forgot to put in a little bit of vinegar in my water. I remember telling you all about it, but I forgot to do it. And actually, it's a great way to show you what it is that happens. You see this white, chalky substance on the jar? That's just minerals from the water. That's all it is. And all you have to do is wash that off. It's not a big deal. However, if you put a little bit of vinegar in your water before you start the process, that won't happen. Now, as you can see in there, these jars are still working. Okay? See all the bubbles? Now, what you're going to do is you're going to leave these jars untouched for at least the next 16 to 24 hours. You're going to leave them on your counter. You're not going to mess with them. You're not going to touch them. You're going to let them complete the sealing and the cooking process. Because believe it or not, they're still cooking. And they're still going through the sealing process. And I think you just heard a little pop, which was one of my seals go down. Or one of my lids go down. All right, so that's what you want to do. You can see this one here is missing a little bit of water. No big deal. I've eaten beans before where the water level was down to here. Absolutely nothing wrong with them. Okay. And as you can see, what we added as far as beans was, in my opinion, the perfect amount. Because it used up all the space in the jar. And when you go to use it, you're not going to have a whole bunch of liquid. You have a good amount of beans. there's no reason why you can't be doing this, especially if you eat beans on a regular basis. And having said that as well, a lot of people have asked me in the past, how are you going to cook these dry beans if there was a grid down situation? There you go. If there's a grid down situation, you can use this pressure canner over an open fire or over a rocket stove or something like that, and it's still going to generate the pressure and heat required to go through the processing of these beans. And you would just make a batch like this, take you a couple of hours, and you'd be good for a week or two. So that's another thing you may want to consider if you have a lot of beans stored up, which is one of the preferable storage items for preppers, is beans and rice, right? To have a pressure cooker to make sure that you can easily and quickly prepare your beans if there were a grid down situation. Having said that, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for joining in. I hope you enjoyed this video and got something out of it. If you did, give it a like and please share. Having said that, remember to be good to each other. When good people do good things happen. Remember to reach one, teach one, and repeat. If we all did this, the world would be a better place, and you know that it will be a better place. Many blessings to all of you and your families. This is Alaska Prepper, and I am out.